Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. The international matches have come to an end. The Premier League is about to return. Finally, club football to talk about. That's not to say the international break didn't have its merits. It had one horrible moment, but it did have positive stuff in terms of performances, goals and assists for Tottenham players. And at this point, we're not aware of any injuries, as in I'm not. We've got the press conference tomorrow, and it may be that Conte says there's been a few knocks and things like that. But at this moment, if we can get away with no injuries but a lot of good performances and the confidence boost that comes, then maybe it wasn't that bad a thing, even if I found it all incredibly boring. The horrible moment, of course, Richarlison playing against Tunisia in Paris. If you're not aware, I think it was after he celebrated his goal, someone threw a banana onto the pitch. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand how that's still happening in today's world. It's just scary where some people's minds go. I don't understand it. I never will. And I honestly don't think, I just think it should be just so strongly dealt with. I just think it always should. I don't understand it. I really don't. It just happens too frequently. Obviously, we had it with Sonny against Chelsea as well. It's just, I mean, that's just two incidents, within a month or two, a couple of months? It's just madness. And that is just obviously the tip of the iceberg. I struggle for words with it because it's just crazy how some people's attitudes and thought processes, none of it makes any sense to me. Just, I can't even think what goes through people's minds that have to suffer that sort of stuff. It's absolutely rubbish. But there you go. I think we should probably try and concentrate on the positives around things. And certainly for Richarlison, other than that, just reminder of how horrible people can be. In terms of his international break for Brazil, he had a terrific one. He had a really, really good international break. Obviously scored a couple of goals in the first game. And then against Tunisia, I think he scored and got an assist, didn't he? Just fantastic one. And supplied the assist for Rafinha. That was it. Just phenomenal international break for him in terms of obviously everything that happened with his own performances. And, if anyone's guaranteed of going to the World Cup, injury aside, it's Richarlison right now. And that can only benefit him coming back to Tottenham. And it's going to create a big old, I think there's going to be that selection who goes in that, if they play 3-4-3. There's some real decisions to be made because Richarlison has had a brilliant international break and will be flowing with confidence. Dejan Kulusevski had a very good international break as well. Got a couple of really good assists. I mean, the one I think it was in the first game was phenomenal. I saw that one as such a clever bit of play. Sonny, who I don't think would be rested or rotated again anyway, because obviously he roared back with that wonderful hat-trick. But he's gone away on international break and scored a goal in each game as well. The first one, that incredible free kick. I think he scored a header yesterday as well against Cameroon in Seoul. Just obviously, I think it will be down between Richarlison and Kulusevski if he plays with the three up front. And that's a tough choice. It really is. It really is. And obviously Harry Kane as well. Forgetting he scored, obviously, that clinical penalty. It was so good. I think I tweeted something like that's one hell of a penalty because it was. His penalty taking, obviously, I think he missed one, didn't he? Not too long ago, but it's kind of the only one I can remember in a long time. I know he has missed them before, but you just feel that confidence with him, even in those big moments. Superb. So, I'd imagine it'll be between Richarlison and Kulusevski, who faces Arsenal, unless he surprises us all and goes with a 3-5-2, and Kulusevski maybe plays as a wing-back. I don't know. But in terms of them, internationals, the attacking players obviously all had a terrific time with their performances. Trying to think who else international-wise. Basuma had a funny break, as in not that kind of break, as an international break. I think he came off the bench for about 25 minutes-ish. What happened was Mali had a double header against Zambia. And in the first game, he came on for the last 25 minutes or so, with the intention, obviously, it was going to start the second game, which he did. But then 15 minutes in, they just had an absolute deluge. Just incredible rain came down, pitch flooded, and then they had this really awkward thing over the next. I was looking at reports that were being done about the game. Someone was doing a live blog. It looked like it took about another 90 minutes for them to finally decide they were going to call off the game. So he only got 25 minutes or so in the first one, about 15 minutes in the second one. So he didn't really get the game time that I think Conte probably would have liked him to get, or he definitely would have wanted to get. So, not hugely successful for Basuma, but, hopefully, like I say, injury-wise, not going to be an issue. Not that we're aware of anyway at this point. So that was Basuma's. Skippy and Sessegnon. I know Skippy and Sessegnon, and Spence. All three of them started England under-21's first game against Italy. I think all three were on the bench for the second game against Germany yesterday. Skippy and Sess came on for the final about 21 minutes or so. And Spence, I think, was an unused substitute. But obviously both of them got more action. That was good. And I think Skippy got an assist as well, if I remember correctly. It was a late goal for, was it Cole Palmer? I think it was. So that was good. That was more for them. All vital minutes for Skippy. Spence, I saw posted earlier about it being a successful international break. So that's good for him and his confidence, which I wouldn't say it's low, but you'd imagine obviously it would be knocked by not having been able to get many minutes. But I'm sure he'll understand the situation behind the scenes. Conte will have we've been speaking to him and have just left him out there in the corner somewhere trying to work out what's happened to him. Bentancur, he played just over an hour yesterday. Uruguay beat Canada 2-0 in Slovakia, which obviously is less of a trip back. Pape Matar, I've got this written down here, actually came off the bench for the last 14 minutes of Senegal's 1-1 draw with Iran in Austria. Again, not too far away, so that's good as well. And Callum Cesay as well. Keeps getting caps for Sierra Leone. They lost 3-0 to DR Congo. Matt Doherty played the full 90 minutes for Ireland. What was that? Yesterday. They beat Armenia. Troy Parrott actually also played 75, 76 minutes as well. So that's all good. More minutes for them. What else we got? Dejan Kulusevski, like I say, got an assist. Maybe he didn't get an assist against Slovenia. I thought he did. He definitely got a brilliant assist in the first game they played anyway. But they drew 1-1 with Slovenia. I think I saw one of the Slovenian goals. It was fantastic. Anyone else? Dane Scarlett came off second half sub for England under 20s. Aaron Maguire played for Republic of Ireland under 19s. Oh, Christian Romero, of course. He played in the early hours. Him and Davinson Sanchez both got 90 minutes, I think, each for Colombia and Argentina, respectively, in their two games. Lo Celso also played 90 minutes. Obviously, a lone player nowadays. I'm trying to think what else I had. There was some others the other day that I was going to tell you about as well. I think I'd written that down here somewhere. Destiny Adogi, that was it. He played, again, I told you about him playing against England, played well in the under-21s. Also played against Japan, got 45 minutes. He seemed to get 45 minutes in each game that they played this week. And Jamie Donnelly and Alfie Dorrington both played for England under 18s. Jamie Donnelly getting an assist, which is fantastic as well. And Luca Gunter was an unused substitute, the goalkeeper. Perisic got an assist. There was all that worry, wasn't there, about the Højbjerg challenge that never was, and some kind of injury, but he played, got an assist as Croatia got there through to Nations League finals. They beat Austria 3-1, and Højbjerg played the full game as they beat France, obviously missing Hugo. We'll hopefully find out an update on Hugo tomorrow at the press conference. And I think that's kind of it. I'm trying to think if I've missed anyone obvious out of the international break. I don't think I have. Like I say, the headline ones, obviously, Sonny and Richarlison having brilliant performances and in terms of getting goals as well. Really, everyone's confidence hopefully has been boosted. I'm not a big advocate of the international breaks. I'm not a massive fan of them. Really not a fan of a mid-season World Cup, but there you go. But at this point, unless Conte tells us any kind of surprise news tomorrow, it's been a positive one in terms of a confidence point of view, apart from that horrible stuff that Richarlison should never have had to go through. So there you go. Right. That was it, really. I wasn't really going to, I'm not heading off. I'm going to do the Q&A because you've sent loads of questions, probably more questions than I've ever had before. I'm going to try and plough through as many as possible. 95%, well, maybe slightly less Spurs questions. There are some questions that aren't about Spurs. I know there's a couple of people that don't like non-Spursy stuff, but that's me. I like to chat about other stuff as well. I'm sorry about that. You just have to kind of mute or put your fingers in your ears and go la 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 when I talk about anything that's non-Spurs. Yeah, I've really slicked up my hair today. Talking of non-Spursy stuff, I didn't actually mean to do that. I just noticed when you can see it back, it's looks like it should be in some kind of Chicago set 1920s gangster movie. That was not the intention at all. Right, let's get into these questions then. I do have them down here. Right, I'm going to try and go from the earliest ones here. At some point it'll all go wrong. I'll have to flip to the new ones because it's a bit sensitive, this. Right, first one. Ninon Genere Treboas asks, I have a question. Do we know what is the situation with, I think it says his wife and daughter, I presume that's Antonio Conte's wife and daughter. Are they still in Italy or are they now in London? Because in the last interview in Sky, he mentioned his house in London because the family situation could be very important. Yeah, I'm pretty sure his daughter is still in her final year or so at school in Italy, with his wife obviously there with her. I think it's Elisabetta and Vittoria. Yeah, from everything I know and having kind of been not there, but kind of certainly known what's happening after games, is he's been flying off straight after matches to head back to Italy, to whether it's to spend the rest of the weekend there or spend little days in here and there. And I know he's been back in Italy with them for a little while during this international break as well. And they obviously come over and visit quite a lot as well in any breaks and school holidays and stuff. I think it's just one of those periods where he explained this to us, I'm trying to think, maybe towards the end of last season, that it's like timing-wise, he doesn't really want to unsettle his daughter in terms of her school and her friends and all that. I think he said she loves London, so she would come at the drop of a hat, but it just feels like for her well-being and school and friendship groups, just to kind of let her get towards the end of this, I think secondary school. I think she's 14, perhaps. I could be completely wrong. I think she's either 14. I don't think she's 15 yet. So yeah, it's just that. And he seems to be making it work as well. He was certainly, I think, to begin with, was living in a hotel. When you say hotel, it's not like probably you or I are used to in hotel rooms. It would be like a suite kind of thing. I think it may have been one that he stayed at when he was at Chelsea. I think he eventually did move out in Chelsea into a house. It may be that he's moved out. I must admit, I haven't really checked on his housing situation, but I'm pretty sure that his wife and daughter are still in Italy, or back and forth from Italy anyway. So, yeah. So I think that's the latest on that. B. O'Sullivan. I don't know what the B stands for. Is it Brian, Brendan, Barry? Could be anything. Bob. As much as I would like Conte to stay, do you really think that they would invoke the extra year without privately agreeing with him first? Yeah, no. I think you might have misunderstood that. So I think I spoke this in the last one, didn't I? The option to extend is something that Conte would have agreed to before he signed that contract. So Conte would have said, or him and his representatives would have agreed to that contract, including that option to extend. So yeah, if Spurs have the power to do that whenever they want, at any point, if they choose to extend, that is something that Conte has already agreed to. I think this is the thing. I think some people are maybe getting mixed up with signing a new contract, perhaps, and not understanding this kind of the option side of it. So if the option is extended, Conte can't go, oh no, kind of thing. It's what he originally agreed to. And for him, hey, gets another year guaranteed on his money. So it's not like it's really a bad thing for him unless he desperately wanted to get out of the club. And then obviously, as I said before, Daniel Levy and Tottenham can ask for a lot more money. But yeah, it's not something that he has to agree to now. You know, whether they do decide you've done incredibly well, let's sort a new contract out a little bit longer, that's another thing. But if they were to invoke that option, and do you know what? I must admit, we're not entirely sure. I presume it's a year, but I don't think we've been told anywhere, or I haven't heard how long that option actually is. Whether it could be 18 months, 2 years, I don't know. I think the likelihood is it would be a year. But I just found it interesting. When Spurs first announced it way back, they literally just said an option to extend. They didn't actually say how long it is. But I think we're all presuming it's going to be a year. Chuck Freeman asks, have you ever thought about doing these videos live, especially since you basically do one take? I do one take. It'd be interesting to get some live chat interaction. Yeah, I will. I want to try all different kind of things on this. You know, you saw me do the YouTube short, what was it, last week? And obviously I do live videos. I've done them before on other mediums. So yeah, it probably is something that I'm going to do at some point. I guess it saves me having to upload it and everything because it's already kind of there. Base Bass asks, take us back. What bit of news have you both been excited about breaking? Getting the tip, checking your sources, confirming the facts, writing up, pressing publish. What has got you giggling like an excited lunatic? Good question. It's always kind of the big ones, isn't it, really? I think it's when players are signing. I remember saying that Spurs were going for Romero and Galini, doing a story on both, that Spurs were doing it, trying to do a double deal for them, essentially. That was exciting because, you know, the more and more I knew a little bit about Romero and the more I read about him, the more kind of excited I was getting about that. So putting together that was exciting. I remember it can be any level stuff. I mean, getting confirmation, it was already kind of out there. There was like whispers of it, but getting confirmation that Bale was going to finally come back on loan after me for years having said it's not happening. And then I think the year before I said it's only happening if they were able to get a loan, and Real Madrid paid a hell of a lot of money towards it. And then eventually it did happen. That was cool. That was very exciting. Although I was actually on a day off the day actually he signed. What else we had? I remember getting way early before it was ever announced. I mean, we're talking months. The Gettier stuff, the training ground sponsorship. Training wear sponsorship. Little stuff like that. That's quite cool because I don't even think with that one. Often what you'll find is if I break something, if someone else breaks something, we all kind of then have to rush to try and confirm it, get our own side, get more detail, things like that. But I think in an instance like the Gettier one, I don't think anyone else wrote a story on it, even afterwards. I don't think I knew it was Gettier at that point. I just knew that they pretty much had agreed quite a lucrative training ground deal. I keep saying training ground deal, training wear deal. And yeah, interesting. No one else, either they couldn't get confirmation, I don't know, after that, but then nothing else appeared until the actual Spurs announced this kind of Gettier sponsorship thing, which I know it's not sexy and exciting, but that's quite cool when you do something like that and no one else chooses to report it. I don't know whether I'm hoping they didn't think it was absolute rubbish, but I just found that interesting. I remember thinking, because not you doubt yourself, but you do think, no one else has reported that. That's strange. And then obviously, I think it was a good 2.5 months before they actually announced. So obviously, contracts and things like that had to be agreed. This is the thing. I've been doing this so long now. When you get news, someone's going. I guess sometimes we get no news, like Poch. Poch was surprised. Honestly, no one in the club actually expected that. And then just suddenly it was one evening, wasn't it? I think he was called in, and it was like boom, it's happened, and they put the statement out really quickly. It was a strange one. That obviously Mourinho. Trying to think of that Mourinho going. I remember the story of that one actually because I had a Tottenham fan from British Gas who was sorting out doing a boiler fix. At our house, And as literally I was starting to get information. I was off that day, and I was starting to get information that Mourinho was gone. I think I wrote the story a couple of weeks before that he wasn't going to finish the season. He wasn't going to. There was the expectation within the club that he was not going to be there next season, and then literally week and a half later he was gone, which some Mourinho fans still blame me for, which is very strange. Absolutely nothing to do with it whatsoever. I like Mourinho. I did. I got on well with him. I thought he was really interesting. But there you go. Yeah, I might think of others as I go on. I've been doing it now 6 years. Yeah, a lot of stories in that time. It's always exciting though when you get a tip about something, and you kind of there's the rush to write the story, but also got to balance it with getting it confirmed elsewhere, getting other sources as well, and getting it all firmed up before you can actually report it. There's times when you manage to report something exactly the same time as someone else. There's sometimes that they'll just beat you to it, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating. That side of it is interesting. That's when the adrenaline gets going, when you get those little tips and bits and pieces. Roland Samuels asked, do you watch other Spurs YouTubers? I don't. I think I've been asked this one before. I don't, and it's not because of any kind of preferences or anything like that. It's just I just have so little spare time. I don't really spend it like kind of watching extra Spurs stuff, if you know what I mean. Because I write about them as my job non-stop. I do these videos in my spare time as well. So anything else I get, I try to kind of spend it family time or movie and TV stuff. I don't really watch any more like things about Spurs. I did watch, I think I mentioned this last time someone asked me, that was it George Akia? So sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. He got asked to do a fitness training-y thing with Spurs. Was it under Mourinho? Was it Carlos Lalin time, perhaps? I can't remember now. But I watched that. That was good. That was really good. I'm sure they're all far more professional than this, and that they all have fancy graphics, things like that. It's not just literally as raw kind of stuff like this. I'm sure they're all very good indeed. But yeah, no, I don't. I mean, I get people very kindly ask me to go on their stuff, and I don't really do all of that. Again, it's the same thing. It's a spare time thing. I do Last Word on Spurs, which, funny enough, it's come around again. I do that. I go on their podcast twice. It's about twice a year, roughly that. Just because we kind of go way back, and I do get on very well with them when I go on there, enjoy myself. And so I don't really do anything else than that. Again, just purely that, because I don't want to Spurs myself out. You don't want to kind of get bored of talking about Tottenham. So yeah, I kind of set this rule. I guess the idea of it is to not seem like you're being preferential to one person or another. Like I say, last one was Spurs. I've done that for pretty much since I've been doing this for 6 years. So it's just they were there at the start. And it's not like I'm turning down one person to do another or anything. I kind of just say pretty much no to everyone else. And that includes other stuff as well. I don't really do. I used to, when I started off, I was doing radio stuff. I did some TV bits as well. And kind of all of that now, I pretty much say no to all of that as well. Just purely because I just want to have some spare time. It's a bit of a mad job. B.F. Sullivan again. I will answer this purely because I've said it again, but I'll try and give everyone one go each rather than do it two. Do you think that Basuma will improve the Spurs midfield in time once he's got used to what Conte wants? Is he an upgrade on either Højbjerg or Bentancur? I think he does. I think he naturally will improve it. Having watched a fair bit of Basuma in the last few years, I think he's been one of the best Premier League midfielders outside the top six. And I think had he not been in the last year of his contract, I think he would have been worth double, 60 million, something like that, even more. I think he's going to be a terrific signing. He just needs to adapt to Conte's ways. Simple as that, and he will. I thought he looked bright against Leicester in that last 20-25 minutes or so. Intrigued to see whether he plays him against Arsenal or not. Obviously, probably would have wanted him to have a bit more game time, but there you go. Stasiazou Stasiu, Stasiu. I apologise for killing another pronunciation. What was your weirdest European journey? He's from Poland. They're from Poland. Weirdest. I'd say the most awkward one was probably getting to the Mura game because we had to fly into Austria. Yeah, I think it was. I think it might have even had a connecting flight. I'm trying to remember now. But definitely ended up in Austria. Then had to get a train from Austria across. I think that was the route we did. And then another train in because it was in Maribor rather than at Mura's home ground. So yeah, it was a nice place. But yeah, that was probably the most interesting all over the shop route, as in the actual journey itself. I did almost get absolutely stranded at Paços de Ferreira on that game right at the start of the Conference League qualifying games because their game was... I was staying in Porto and their game was played in the Paços de Ferreira stadium. Actually, I think it was the press conference rather than the game. Yeah, I think it was after the press conference. And I came out and the little town that was there was just shut down. There was nothing. There was no shops open. There was no taxis. There was nowhere to get. I was the only English journalist there at that point. Two more came for the game the next day, but for the press conference, it was just me because this was kind of back in stuff just starting to open up again post-pandemic or post-lockdown. And yeah, I remember having to... I had a nightmare. I rang various taxi firms that just was ringing. Tried to go on Google Maps, walked like a couple of miles to taxi ranks and places. They weren't open. And I just so lucky. I went into a restaurant where I was just kind of thinking, maybe I'm just going to have a meal and ask them if they know anyone they could ring. And the restaurateur there was just the nicest guy and helped me out massively. Rang a friend who wasn't even on duty, but he came in his taxi to come and pick me up. And he was the nicest guy. So yeah, that was probably my slightly weirdest getting back. That was just getting back to Porto. Carmel Walsh asks... Oh, sorry, I've missed that one. Ryan Tristan asks, do you think there'll be a big signing in January or next summer? I'm sure there'll be a big signing next summer. In terms of January, like I said before, I think probably Brian Hill will want to head out on a loan to get regular football if he hasn't. I think the World Cup does bring a different element to the January window, of course, which certain players will get injured, certain players will be absolutely knackered, certain players will go up in value, others might decrease. It's going to create a very different January market. It's essentially you're going to have 2 seasons within one. And there will be certain teams that maybe have had a rubbish first half of the season. They see someone at the World Cup and they think, oh, I'll have him. And it will change that market, which will be interesting. But like I said, I think the likes of Hill, Tanganga, maybe they head off on loan. Anyone else, maybe Pape Matar, maybe they plan to do that then as well, so give him a bit of loan time. And I think those players then have to be replaced. So I think there'll be movement in January because I think there kind of has to. And I think Conte will want it as well. I know it's the more difficult market, the window of the winter window, but I think he'll want more. The way he's been talking about it's a multi-window process, so I think that will happen. Carmel Walsh asks, hi Alistair, how does your wife feel about your job? Does she mind the long hours at the weekend, the trips away, and the fact that you're becoming famous, in quote marks, which very much should be in quote marks? Is she a football fan, Spurs, or is she bemused by the whole thing? Yeah, she's great. She's fantastic with it, to be honest. Doesn't like me heading off on the European trips or the pre-season tours, of course. And I understand that. She's not a fan of those. She appreciates, though, the kind of the job I got to do. And going to all certainly the Premier League matches home and away and all that. And she never complains about that whatsoever. In terms of again, famous, which I definitely don't consider myself to be. She, I think, finds that a bit weird when I get asked for or people just stop to chat or a selfie and things like that. She's kind of getting slightly more used to it because for some reason the last maybe 6 months to a year, it's kind of happening a lot more than it used to. It used to be that my youngest daughter always seemed to be around when it happened, and my wife didn't really get to see it, but she has since then. She was fine until there was one. Where were we? We were in like a local shopping centre not too far from where we live, and some lady whose either boyfriend or husband watches these videos, and she asked if she had a photo, and she kind of handed her phone to my wife to take it. I don't think she was that ecstatic about that one, having to do that, being kind of having to be the photographer. But yeah, it's fine. As in terms of football fan, I think she's kind of become a Spurs fan, really. My father-in-law, her dad was a Spurs fan anyway, so it kind of, she always had a passing interest, and I think she now has a good knowledge of it all, kind of either hearing me moan about stuff, or certainly used to be that when I'd come in from a match, my youngest, who's now at uni, she and my wife would know the score and before I got in the door, so they clearly had done a little bit of research before I got in. So yeah, that's kind of how that works. Nick Fenn asks, if you were asked by Antonio to give Spurs an inspiring team talk at the North London derby, what would you say to the team? I'd leave it to Antonio. Honestly, they're the experts. You could do, like I saw the All or Nothing, the Arsenal one, where he got the photographer in, and it was a really good speech, very passionate speech. But I kind of feel it just should be the manager's job, or even one of the players, because they're the ones that have got to do it, to be honest. I did like the Michael Sheen one for Wales. That was very good. And, obviously I'm not Welsh, but even for me, I was like, but it was proper spine tingling. I did enjoy that. David Kingsley asks, when travelling, do you look out for the local official Spurs fan clubs, such as the Orlando Spurs or New York Spurs, when you're visiting? I'm an expat who's a member of the Jacksonville Spurs called 904 Spurs and would love to have you as a special guest. It's a lot of fun watching the games with American fans and expats. You will have a totally different game perspective for your articles. It's very kind. I do... certainly when we're doing pre-season tours, I'll go out and have a chat with people from the supporters clubs. I'll be totally honest, when I'm on a holiday with the family, I will just be on a holiday with my family. In Orlando recently, essentially my game watching was limited pretty much to being in queues for rides at the theme parks, watching it on my phone and stuff like that. So yeah, I probably wouldn't on a holiday because it takes away from that time with the family. But I can imagine it being very cool. I've had people send me videos from pubs and stuff. And when we were in New York, we went to the New York Spurs Irish pub. It's down the bottom of Manhattan. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's gone out of my head. But it was very cool. We went in there one evening. That was very, very cool indeed. I think I also went there for Ledley. Did one of his Q&A night type things. So yeah, no. When I'm on the actual kind of trips and match things, I will look out for them. And I had people in Orlando very kindly. Orlando Spurs were asking like come and watch it, but yeah, essentially just going there to have a little bit of a break from Spurs with the family. So it was very polite, very generous. But yeah, no, I probably wouldn't do that while I'm on an actual holiday. But yes, very cool. What else we got here? Kent Capers asks, I'm worried about the upcoming Arsenal game. Do you think there's a chance Conte will consider 3-5-2 so we're not overrun in the middle? I think Kulu could either play in the middle or as a wing-back. Like I say, I'd love to see the 3-5-2 with Kulusevski as the right wing-back. I think, personally, again, what do I know? But I would love to see him match up with the three in the midfield because I do think Spurs have struggled against three-man midfields. But, Conte may have a big plan. He may be looking to overload the pitch in a different area and get joy from that. So we shall find out. But I would like, personally, to see a three-man midfield in there. I think some of Spurs' good performances have come with a three-man midfield. I'll always remember the Liverpool one last year, which was a random midfield of Tongi, Harry Winks and Dele Alli. I think it was after the bout, wasn't it? After the... when they had COVID swept through the camp. I think it was after that. And they played really well. Spurs created so many chances in that game. Jacques C asks, what do your kids think about your job and do they tell you how their friends react to your profession? Are your kids removed from the football interest, or do they ask you to get tickets, for example? I don't know. I think they could find it all quite funny. I know some of them have had friends that either watch these or read my stuff, which is always quite funny. They don't ask for tickets. No, took the girls to when I had to do the H Club review. They loved that. Having a fine dining experience is obviously the kind of thing that we'd never be able to dream of in normal life. And they watched Spurs beat Newcastle 5-1 as well. I had to try and explain to them that doesn't happen every week. So that's probably their main. I think I've taken them to open training before. I've taken them to friendly matches, but this was kind of the first Premier League match with them, and they did love it. But it's yeah, I don't think it's something they do regularly, but certainly they did enjoy themselves. What else we got? Dave and Pam Beveridge, good meeting you at Ibrox back in July. Yes, I remember meeting you indeed. Looking forward to the summer of 2023. Do you think ENIC will increase their shareholding like they did this summer, allowing for a slightly more significant than average transfer budget? Ooh, I don't know. I don't know. I can't really predict that, to be honest with you. I'd hope that in terms of the money that will start rolling in from the stadium itself this season, and obviously the NFL or the concerts, things like that, you'd hope that the money will be there anyway without having to raise extra revenue next summer. But yeah, definitely one to keep an eye on. You know, it could be, is it part of a long-term strategy to continue to keep doing that? Maybe, I don't know. Nick Fenn asks, have you ever met Chirpy? If so, what they like? Where did Chirpy go? It's a funny question because I used to know one of the Chirpies. Before I did this job, I used to know a guy who... no, I don't want to ruin the illusion. I used to know Chirpy. Let's put it that way. Yeah, I did. I used to know Chirpy back in the day in different iteration. I don't know the current Chirpy or... is it Lily Chirpy? I can't remember. There's the female one as well. We kind of don't have too much to do with Chirpy up in the press box. Never speaks to us. Never sits down for an interview for some reason. Jacques C again. Sorry, I've said it now, so guys, I'll answer this one. What are your thoughts on a juxtaposition of football fans more evident in richer but failing clubs when they protest to shut down governing bodies like ENIC, but at the same time push for more expensive signings? It's a difficult one. I think I may have said this before, but I try and have a little bit more context to stuff because I used to cover non-league football. That was what I did before this. So I've reported on clubs that are going out of business, some clubs that shut down and no longer exist, had to come back with different names, clubs where players aren't being paid, kind of guess big problems at clubs. And that's not to do down any concerns about current clubs whatsoever and the bigger clubs higher up the table, because obviously I guess it's relative, I suppose. It's different issues for different kind of sizes of clubs. I think fans have got every right to grumble. If they're paying the money for their season tickets and stuff, they've got every right to grumble. If they're paying money to get into any games, they have a right to grumble. Like I say, I probably come into it with a little bit more context because of that. But I can also understand where frustrations lie and where they come from. I just think it's part of football fandom. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think sometimes it can push progress. Sometimes it can be too much, but sometimes it can also push progress. B Boulder 5 asks, who is the large bald Spurs staff member who is often on the touchline during games? It looks like he's often with the players just before they enter the game as soon as they come on. I presume you're talking about Alan Dixon. His title is actually team manager, which obviously sounds a bit different when you talk about football, but I think because he used to be a player liaison officer, and I now think it's a bigger, all-encompassing role called team manager, where, essentially sorts everything out for them, looks after everyone there, and now he has become this presence on the touchline. I think he's quite a shy guy. I think he's ex-army. He doesn't really want to be involved in any of that sort of stuff. I think now the fact he's on the touchline and will sometimes quite a fair bit do the substitution boards, means he's always there, and people ask this question. So yeah. Let's have a look. Lee Cole asks, how many hours do you do a week, and do you get a salary or hourly wages? Also, talk us through an average week of work for you. Thanks. I'm not going to show you my pay slip, if that's what you're asking. How many hours do I do a week? I guess the main kind of hours, I think our normal days are 8 to 9 hour shifts. Obviously, journalism doesn't really work like that. You can often be working later just purely because you're trying to get stories, finish them, whatever. And then obviously I do these videos in my spare time as well. Match days are just completely, can be anything. Depends what it is. You know, I can leave early in the morning for an away game up north and not get back till way after midnight. Same as I can be at a match at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I think I said this in the last video. I can be working into the early hours of the morning when I get back because I'm writing various bits as well. It's journalism isn't a job you can really kind of pigeonhole into a 9 to 5. It doesn't really work like that. And any aspiring journalists out there, don't get into it if you think 9 to 5s are what you're going to be doing. It's all an average week of work. It's pretty much dictated by what's happening with the fixture schedule. So the last 2 weeks have been the international break, where I've had to kind of be a bit more creative, I think, and try to write things maybe a little bit nostalgia bits. I did a 10 top Spurs signings of the Premier League era, and then I had to pick my top one. I'll do little silly things like player season ratings so far for the players. I'll look at certain aspects of the club and things like that as well. But then for the next 6 weeks, it's just going to be utter mayhem because completely different. I'm going to have press conference, match, day off, press conference, match, day off probably. And pretty much that, because there's a game every 3 days pretty much, which means you also have a press conference every 3 days as well. It's just going to be, there's going to be loads to write about. I must admit, that's my favourite time. I prefer to be busy and not have to scrabble around and think up stuff. I like to, we have enough of that over the summer, and it's all about the transfer window and everything. So when it's actually a season, I like just cracking on and covering games and things like that. What else we got here? Robin Tempo asks, or Tempo, it's T3MPO. Marcus Edwards, is he coming home ever? Is there a clause in his contract that ties him to Tottenham? There's a sell-on clause, which is, I think, 50%, but then Vittoria get 10% of that 50%. I don't know whether there's a buyback clause. I must admit, it's never been mentioned at any point. That's not to say there isn't, but it's never been mentioned. I don't know. We'll see how he develops, I think, is the best thing, really. And whether he gets to a stage where... Because the problem is for Marcus, I think, let's say he came back right now, I still don't think he gets in that Tottenham team. And that's not to say it's bad. I think he's developed hugely. I think he looked really impressive for Sporting. But I still think the kind of the size of player, as in not height, but as in, you know, you've got Spurs' let's say fourth choice, even though he's not because it's rotation, but they've just signed him for 60 million. And obviously you've still got Lucas and Brian Hill as well. So it would have to be down the line, and I guess at that point it depends how much he's developed, really. Let's have a look. What else we got here? Curry asks, there have been quite a few Spurs wonder kids over the past years that didn't quite make it at Spurs. Which one surprised you the most? Which one would you have liked Spurs to have thrown in at the deep end and stuck with? I guess Marcus is a great example of that. I probably would have liked to see him, get a little bit more of a chance than he did. But obviously I know there were kind of other extenuating factors there, including got an ankle injury, and then I think he had his tonsils out, which kind of really interrupted his momentum at that time as well, and obviously other bits and pieces. The one, and I remember doing an interview with him a few years back, I've always we'd be gutted about, was Terry Dixon. If you look up, Google Terry Dixon, Alistair Gold or whatever, and you'll find my interview with him. It was such a raw and honest interview with a guy that he was, if you're not aware of him, he would have been coming through just at the start of Martin Joel's era. he was one of the most talented young academy players out there. They call him the Irish Rooney, Irish kind of lineage, which meant that he once got called up, and Steve Staunton called him up to Republic of Ireland squad when he was 16, and he'd never played a senior match. Not even a friendly, I don't think, but he got called up to the full Republic of Ireland squad. This is how good he was, and they really thought he was going to be one of the biggest things. And he just had the most unfortunate time. He had one really bad knee injury, like a really, really bad knee injury. Came back. I'm trying to think if I'm trying to remember now. It's a few years ago since I wrote this. I'm trying to remember. I have a feeling it was really quickly after that. Got another terrible knee injury, a different kind. It was just so bad luck. And then after that, obviously, it just all got on top of him and just never was able to kind of try to manage the knee, and it wouldn't work. And honestly, I then would later watch him back in my non-league days playing for teams like Hitchin Town and Ware, I think he was at briefly as well. And it was just such a shame because you just knew how good he could have been. And talking to him, he knows how good he could have been. And he knows that he kind of went a little bit off the rails himself when the injury started to hit. He's obviously was depressed as well. And there was so much to it. Like I say, it's better for you to read his words because he tells the story himself. I kind of just let him tell the story. That was the whole point of the feature rather than me weighing in there with any waffle. I'll always say Terry Dixon as the wonder kid who I wish had made it, which is so unfortunate. We could be talking about him now as one of the best, like a Harry Kane, a player, kind of a Harry Kane mixed with Wayne Rooney, but never was to be. There's so many tales of that, though, across football. It's such a shame. Chris Hellu asks, if Tottenham didn't want Conte anymore, who's going to be the new manager? Well, they certainly want Conte at the moment, so I don't think that's an issue to have to worry about anytime soon. Hopefully. I guess in terms of who's out there, if let's say in a kind of hypothetical world, Conte just suddenly had a huge tantrum and wanted to walk out and they let him go, I guess you've got Poch and Tuchel are both out there at the moment, but I don't think that's something hopefully we need to think about at the moment. I don't want to do more manager stuff. Oh, the summer of, 2021 still gives me shivers. Sam KA asks, beer or wine while at the ground? Neither. I'm working, so I don't drink. I will have a bottle of water or a tango. Exciting times, because I don't do hot drinks really, other than hot chocolate. I haven't really grown up. Never liked tea or coffee, so I don't do tea or coffee. And I know there'll be people right now going, oh my god, what are you talking about? But I just never have. It just always tastes like boiled water with a bit of a tang. Don't know why. Just never took to it. Joe Menjivar asks, Spurs are seemingly in a golden age of nicknames with Lolo. Lolo? Who's Lolo? Am I going mad? Is that Bentancur? It's not Lolo. They call him Rodri. Or Roddy. I'm trying to remember, Eric Dyer called him it the other day. Kuti, Deki, El Patron, Sanchez. What are your favourite nicknames, either past or present? Kind of sad Coco isn't here to enjoy it. Yeah, Deki one's a good one. I like Deki. I remember being told a couple of weeks in that he's not a massive fan of Kulu. He'd always wanted to be called Deki. So, always try to call him that as well. I think it's Deki, which you've spelled exactly right in yours. Favourite nicknames? Just silly ones. Like Aaron Lennon being called Azza. Does the English need to call people Wazza? Wazza, Azza, Gaza, Bazza, probably out there as well. Hopefully you can tell me who Lolo is. I liked some of the Conte ones at the start of the season. We had Hobby and Winky, which sound like Teletubbies for Hoiberg and Winks. Obviously Skippy. That's just a nice easy one. I'm trying to think who else I like the flip side. I like the fact that he calls Matt Doherty Matthew. I do. I think that's so old school. Lolo. That's going to annoy me now, because I'm trying to think who Lolo is. Can't be Bentancur, is it? There's definitely someone that has a nickname. I'm trying to remember what Richarlison's is now. I don't know. I'd go for Hobby and Winky, because it made us chuckle every time Conte said that. Paul Rigby asks, given the circumstances surrounding his appointment, I think Ryan Mason did a pretty good job as interim manager. What with him having impressed Conte well enough to be retained on the first team coaching staff, do you think the club could be grooming him as a potential head coach for the future? I think they hope so. I do think they hope so. Don't forget, he was Spurs manager at 29, wasn't he? Caretaker boss. And I know people grumbled at the time, but when you look back at his record, he did pretty well in the circumstances, being chucked into that as a 29-year-old. And the players respected him. His training sessions were supposed to be superb. And I think Conte witnessed one of his training sessions when he first arrived because he wasn't allowed to really get involved. And I think that kind of sold him on Mason as well, seeing him in action. I'd imagine, I think Ryan Mason will want to be a manager, you'd think sooner rather than later. I just wonder where he has to go away from Spurs first to come back. We'll see. Aaron in Edmonton asks, would you rather see Tottenham win the league or the Champions League? Ooh, tough one. Obviously, I've seen Spurs finish second. I've reported on Spurs finish second. I've reported on Spurs finishing second in the Champions League, as it were. Whatever one gives the longer term success, it's a tough one. They're much of a muchness, but I maybe feel like winning the league is something that you can kind of always have to your name. It's a difficult one because around Europe, winning the Champions League would be a bigger thing, I guess. But then I suppose it's a difficult one because you look at Leicester, and obviously they are Leicester Premier League champions of recent years. But does that affect people coming there against signing players? I don't know. Champions League winner maybe do more so, possibly. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe in kind of as an Englishman, or certainly having been born in England, maybe winning the Premier League is the one that you see as slightly bigger. But then Champions League maybe globally is a bigger thing. That's a good question. Be interested in other people. Let me know underneath what you think. There was a question about Paratici and various, because there was some kind of investigation, wasn't there? Pretty sure that all got cleared up and finished with. We don't need to go into that. F101892. Do you use different mic setup for podcast and YouTube? Yeah, podcast is all, I can see it from here. I kind of have like a microphone setup that plugs into the laptop. This is just literally my phone sitting on a little stand thing in front of me, and that's it. It's just quite simple, really. It's kind of what it's meant to be. Johnny Webb asks, as a man who likes a good sigh, which player would lead to the loudest and longest, Dele or Tongi? I think Tongi. I'm even sighing as I say it. Dele, I think you got 2 to 3 fantastic years out of him for Spurs as one of the best young players in Europe. Tongi, I don't think we ever really got to see more than some glimpses. It was a bit more consistent under Mourinho, but just not enough of the magic that man is capable of. Definitely the loudest and longest sigh would be for Tongi. He could be incredible. Charlie Delta asks, with Conte playing wingers and wing-backs, do you think Spence could be repurposed as a right winger for this season to rotate with Decky while Lucas is out injured? You mean doing the reverse, changing a wing-back into a winger? I don't think he needs to. I'm sure he might, as a sub, chuck him on there and push him high up the pitch, but he's got enough people that can play on that right side of the wing, so I don't really think it's necessary. Just wanting to play as a right wing-back would be nice. Robert Shooty asks, is there any route back to the first team for Joe Rodon given his good performances for Rennes and now his status is homegrown? I feel he would make a great low-cost alternative to Bastoni for that left centre-back role. Yeah, obviously the homegrown thing has now changed, so that, these players that have played for Welsh clubs in an English game don't have to worry about that anymore. I'd say the fact that Rennes have got they've got a clause, haven't they, to an option to buy him, I'm pretty sure. So I think they'd be mad not to, quite frankly, because they could probably, even if they wanted to sell him straight on, they could make a profit. So I'd imagine that route back will be tough unless Rennes decide that they don't want to sign him, which I can't see happening. Hanzo Razor asks, I don't know, this might have been in relation to something I said. Was Poch really backed when he and we needed it? I remember us not doing anything for 3 transfer windows. I think it was 2. I think it's often said that people say it was 3, but I'm pretty sure it was 2 because Lucas Moura arrived in one of them. I think it was summer and January. They didn't sign anyone, which is bad enough. Don't get me wrong. That was at the time. I remember writing how poor it was. So yeah, no, he wasn't backed fully. Of course not. No, he wasn't backed in those windows. There's some elements with Poch not wanting players, definitely, but on the whole, no, definitely no. Wasn't backed. Wasn't backed fully. No, I don't think so. Difficult time when they're building a stadium, but no, to go through a summer and a January window without signing anyone is bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. It's not refreshing and improving a squad. Dan Brusco asks, as a journalist that has worked in the pre-social media era, that makes me feel old, do you enjoy your job more now than you did 15 years ago? Vast increase in media interaction reaction on social media has the opposite benefit for a journalist that more people see your content, but I imagine you have to write about, comment on and dispel views from increasingly expectant fans. It goes both ways. I like being able to interact on social media. It's good fun. I'm someone that likes to laugh at things. So I enjoy that. I don't like the reactionary ways of social media. I do think there's, I guess maybe because it's a younger crowd perhaps, like I say, maybe with less context, I do feel like a player is either the worst person ever after they've had a bad performance or a performance that they didn't like, and then they're the best thing ever after a good performance. There's kind of no middle ground. So I don't like that element of social media, and of course I don't like the abuse that goes on social media as well. It is very, very easy to hide on social media behind some profile picture of a footballer and a name that isn't yours and all that. I don't like that element to it. And of course, some of the abuse that players get is horrific. I guess as a journalist, I guess it connects everything quicker. So, yeah, I think I said this before, that we'll obviously hear little things and rumblings from other countries. Obviously, there's been so many foreign players in the Premier League now, so we kind of have an idea of stuff that's happening in other countries quicker, which is good. It then means that we can kind of dig into it a bit more. I'd say it's right in the middle. I don't know if I prefer it or not. It was a simpler world. Was it a nicer world? Maybe there was less opportunity for people with dubious morals to say what they want to say, perhaps. I don't know. I don't know. So I'm going to go undecided on that one. I'm not sure whether I enjoy it more or less, really. I guess I won't be able to do this. YouTube, social media, I guess it's a form of it because of the comments underneath as well. I wouldn't have been able to do this so much. So, this is fun. It's very cathartic for me. Chad Mercer asks, do you think the World Cup will have a detrimental effect on some of the big teams and their respective players, enough to see them drop down the table or out of cups? Potentially. It depends on tiredness and injuries, like I say. I think a lot of clubs have tried to build bigger squads because of that, and like I say, that may be the reason why generally there is more movement than normal, because they have to rebuild squads. But yeah, I think it'll have a detrimental effect on all clubs, to be honest with you. You'll get the odd one that maybe someone gets a bad injury this month or early next, and they're back available for after the World Cup. We saw it with with Spurs and the pandemic pause, the lockdown pause in football, when I think it was Kane, Son. I feel like maybe Sissoko back then. I'm trying to remember. Bergwijn, certainly. They were all injured and would have missed probably much of the end of the season, but then they were able to come back in the June and play all the games. So, yeah, it can work both ways, but I think on the whole it's probably going to have a detrimental effect on club football. What else have we got here? Habari asks, have you heard anything about the London NFL franchise? I reckon that the naming rights deal is on ice until we can offer both NFL and Premier League. I don't know if it's too soon. I think it's I think an NFL franchise in London would probably be a little bit further down the line. Yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping to go. I think I am at the game. Vikings. Is it Saints? I'm trying to remember who it is now this Sunday. Is it Falcons or Saints? This Sunday, and then Giants Packers the next week. I'll be at both of those. I can't get to the Wembley game unfortunately, but I'll be at both of those. In terms of NFL franchise, I think that's the aim for Spurs. I think, of course, with the stadium and being the only purpose-built NFL stadium outside the US, I do think that was always the eventual plan, and maybe the dream of these double-header days of having, whatever they're called, the Tottenham Hotspurs would probably have to be the London something, wouldn't it? I'm guessing. There in the morning and then Spurs playing in the afternoon, perhaps. I don't know. You'd think that would be the dream. But yeah. I wouldn't think naming rights is dependent on that NFL franchise, because I always remember reading so many different sides to it. And I think it was tax was one of them as well. The issues with players working abroad and all that, there's so much to it they'd have to resolve, I think, before it can even become a thing. But no, I am looking forward to these next couple of games, especially seeing Giants, who are my team, and Brian Daboll. I called him by his nickname, Daboli, which is like a jokey thing with me and my neighbour. From when he first joined, that I started off calling him that, and it became a nickname, and it's kind of stuck, is Brian Daboll. Which would be really cool if I can. I'll be in the pressers as well, so if I can chuck in a question there or two, him and maybe Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, players like that. Not Sterling Shepherd, unfortunately. Bad injury for those not into their NFL. Andrew Kellett asks, at what point in time do you think Delhi sides decline, and can you give the main reason? It was about 2.5, 3 years in. The main reason could be any number of reasons. I think the only person you could probably ask is Delhi, to be honest. I always wondered, did Son becoming so good, did that force a change in formation that meant that Delhi was no longer the Harry Kane partner? Perhaps. That's maybe an on-pitch reason. Sonny, you're just too good. It's not his fault. But I do wonder that with Sonny and Kane becoming that partnership, whether that kind of pushed Delhi into other roles which maybe eventually weren't as good for him. I don't know. You've seen the various things about people saying off the pitch, just I suppose in training and stuff. Was it Mourinho said that he wasn't a great trainer? I think Lampard was saying some stuff recently as well. It kind of started to go, didn't it, before the end of the Poch era, really? I don't know. It's just a huge shame. It is a huge shame. I hope that something flips and he just rediscovers his mojo, because there's an incredible player in there. There really is. What else we got? TVGC MMA asks, out of the current squad, who would you pick as the 5 penalty takers for one shootout? I think obviously Harry Kane, Sonny, probably Eric Dyer, because we've seen him take big penalties before. I think you then just have to go with your attackers, really. I'd imagine someone like a Højbjerg or Bentancur would be very calm in that situation, but you would probably go for your Richarlisons and Kulusevskis, you'd think, in those situations, I'd say. Snaper Jin asks, not a THFC question, what do you think about the fact that we get so many new Star Wars related series, and can you keep up with all of them? I certainly like it and would love to hear what ones you like the most. Cheers and have a good one. I will hopefully be watching the new Andor after this. I've watched the first 3 episodes. That's very good. Slower, but good in a different way. As long as they don't saturate it, that's fine. I think they felt that with the movies. They were bringing out so many Star Wars movies. But yeah, no, I liked Kenobi. I thought that was really good as well. Yeah, let's see. As long as they don't kind of flood it, I'm sure it'll be fine. The Mandalorian was superb. The Book of Boba Fett was good in parts. It wasn't quite to the standard of The Mandalorian. And it did become a bit like Mandalorian season 2.5, didn't it? Halfway through. But yeah, like I say, it's the same with anything. Just don't saturate it, I guess. Make sure that the quality is there and people don't get too fed up of it. Roberto Villegas asks, when it comes to writing, do you have any preferred software that you write in, or does it depend on what you're writing? We just have a work system, which is a web-based browser called CUE. That's what we use. So that's it, really. We just write straight into that, or I'll write in WordPad. Don't really use Word anymore. I used to back in the day. But everywhere I've worked as a journalist, you always have a system that you write into, which then, in our case, puts it straight onto a web page. And back in the day, I used to have various systems because I'd write into paper as well. So I'd be able to put it onto a newspaper print page and also onto a website as well. It all became more and more sophisticated as we went on. I haven't. Peter Sandals, I asked previously about the structure above the North Stand, the Sky Bar. Have you found out yet what's happening to it? I'm sorry, I haven't, and now it's going to be absolutely mad. I might. When is the next home game? It's Frankfurt, isn't it? I've got to head off to Frankfurt on Monday. I prefer to ask someone actually within the stadium rather than someone else. I will get an answer. I will. Kate Rixham asks, who's the best manager you've interviewed at Spurs? I've enjoyed all of them. I have. That's a really difficult one. I probably knew Poch the best because obviously I had more time with him and some nice kind of off-the-record kind of sit-down chats on pre-season tours. But Mourinho was really good to me. So was Conte's been great. Even Nuno has been good fun as well. Ryan Mason was good. Probably go further back. I'd say Martin Jol, because I've been very fortunate to talk to him a fair few times and really long, in-depth stuff. So, yeah, I'll go with Martin. I like Martin. He's a lovely guy. And I always feel that maybe some Spurs fans don't realise just quite how much he built the foundations of the Tottenham of today. I really feel he did. Stephen Lloyd asks, who wins? It's a two-part question. No, three-part question. Who wins Strictly this year? I don't know. I don't really watch Strictly. I'm afraid I don't. What upcoming movie are you most looking forward to? Good question. I can't wait for the new Indiana Jones because they've got the chap who did Logan, and I've got high hopes as in director rather than Spielberg. Spielberg's a fantastic director, but this is less of a George Lucas involved one. And yeah, I'm intrigued to see kind of where it goes. And I saw Harrison Ford getting quite emotional recently at the D23, the Disney Expo, where they were talking about, and he was saying, like, I know he would, but he just seemed genuinely emotional, saying that this is a fantastic one. So I'm very much looking forward to that, and obviously James Mangold as well. He's yeah, I love Logan. It's superb. So I just feel that's probably that's not till 2024. I'm trying to remember when that's coming out now. Even if it is next year, I'm going to type that down now. I'm going to have to find out because that's going to annoy me. That's probably the one I'm most looking forward to. It is coming out. It's 2023. Next summer because it kept getting delayed. You see, because there were little elements of the fourth one that I liked, but not enough. It just had too much sci-fi element to it, which I didn't like. I like my sci-fi, but I think Indiana Jones has got to get a balance right. Third question, do you think the formation change at the end of the last match could be like when Conte won the league with Chelsea not saying we'll win the league? It could be, who knows? It depends whether he rolls with it though. If he takes it into the Arsenal game and it becomes a thing, then it could be. Why not? Scott Haynes asks, what's your favourite sports movie? I know an obvious choice might be those Glory Days. Personally, I love Moneyball. Yeah, good ones. I remember when I was young, I used to love Escape to Victory and was it When Saturday Comes, the Sean Bean one. I really like that as well. Later on, Friday Night Lights, love that. I absolutely adore the series. The series is like one of my favourite series as well. Clear Eyes, Full Hearts, Can't Lose, and all of that. Is it Any Given Sunday as well? Really enjoyed that. It was that Al Pacino, the NFL one as well. Moneyball is superb. I'm trying to think of other ones that I've enjoyed. Goal was good fun. I don't think if I've ever seen Goal 2 or 3. But Goal was quite amusing back in the day. Just to see the way they did football. Bend It Like Beckham was good fun as well. Yeah, there's been a few out there. There's loads I'm probably forgetting there as well. So many sports movies. Even with baseball, with oh my goodness, Tom Hanks, Madonna. They've just literally made it into a series with Nick Offerman from Parks and Recreation. You can tell me. I'm going to have to type it in because otherwise I get 7,000 people telling me in the comments below. It's not 7,000 really. Madonna, Tom Hanks. I haven't even finished it. It's League of Their Own. Honestly, I remember that before I'd finished typing it out. Mark Trower asks, do you think Spurs should be looking at bringing in a new... I just realised how long I've been talking. I've got to wrap this up soon. Do you think Spurs should be looking at bringing in a new goalkeeper to work with Hugo as he's only got the rest of this and next season before his contract is up? Maybe you look at that in the summer, perhaps, to start looking at his successor. Obviously, that was probably the idea with Galini, and Lloris was just too good, and Galini maybe just wasn't quite what they wanted in the end. Perhaps next summer when you try and look at a transition, but yeah, I wonder whether it's more on Lloris and what he decides to do. Don Basso asks, does the option to extend Contre's contract mean Harry Kane has a similar clause in his? I don't believe so. He says, I hope so, especially with the German interest in him. Yeah, German interest is interesting because Harry Kane quite clearly in his interview came out with the Gary Neville one saying, I don't want to play abroad. He was quite clear on it. And we know he wants to break Alan Shearer's record as well. So, yeah, no links to abroad really make much sense to me. And I have no doubt that I would love to sign him because he's terrific. Oh, yeah, World War Z was the Brad Pitt film I was trying to think of last week about the zombie. Do you ever go to watch football when not working? Asked Andy McPherson. No, once in a while I might go back and watch some of the non-league teams to watch them. Sometimes when I'm off, I'll go to watch a Spurs match with Guesty anyway and maybe just do a tiny bit of work from it because my logic is I'd only watch it on the telly anyway. So I might as well go and watch it and maybe just do one piece of work from it. I do that occasionally. Alfie Hannibal asks, who do you think is Spurs' hidden gem, either current first-team player or future first-team player? Like I said earlier, I mentioned his name. Keep an eye out for Jamie Donnelly. I think he's going to be superb. We all know about Alfie Devine. Alfie could be a fantastic player. As long as he keeps his head down and keeps going, I think he could be superb. Jamie Donnelly, I think is going to be a talent. I'll go for him. This is the trouble, you see, also, is that I'm quite wary now. When I started off, I was quite very much into, I'd write down all these young players, say who was terrific, who I felt could could become really big. And I think now, without sounding like an idiot, but I think the more now people have started to listen to what I say, I don't actually end up want to be the person that puts too much pressure on young players. And it's gone the other way now, whereas at first I could maybe just be quite honest and say, whereas now maybe I have to hold back slightly because I don't want to put them in a situation where more people are noticing them, more people are maybe following them on social media and stuff like that. They start to lose their focus and stuff and it all goes a bit wrong. I guess I have a bit more of a duty now in that respect. I don't know. Because I've had... Yeah, can't remember back in the day. I've had certain young players that would really like having the attention. They would like to have me writing stuff. I had certain players that didn't like it. And obviously they like... And I get this because I was young as well. You'd have players who like it when you're saying nice things, but if you go to a match and you say that they weren't particularly great, they don't like that. I've had a couple of players who've blocked me in the past as well because I wrote kind of things about them in a match and stuff, or perhaps that weren't... You know what I'm like. I'm never going to say anything horrible or nasty or anything, but maybe just said that they weren't particularly great in that match or something. I've had them react in that way, which is really interesting. I find that quite a fascinating thing because it kind of shows, I guess, maybe them being too sensitive about match performance and criticism and things like that. I find that all fascinating. I'm trying to think. I don't think now. Most of them, I think, would unblock me at some point. Yeah, and as I'm saying, I think it's like 1 or 2. It makes it sound like every young academy player is blocking me, which sounds dodgy in itself. But no, it's just purely sometimes they didn't like it. When to be honest, I don't get to as many academy games as I used to anyway. But yeah, back then I'd have to do player ratings as well. Maybe they didn't like player ratings or something. I don't know. But it's all part of it, isn't it? When you're a footballer, unfortunately, you've just got to have that bit thicker skin, especially with the media, I'd say, because the media on the whole, especially someone like myself, any criticism is meant to be constructive, I guess. I know social media is a different thing at times, but yeah. Right. I'm going to ask 2 more because this has gone really long. This might end up being my longest ever video. Mike Spurs asked, have you seen the latest James Bond movie, No Time to Die, and what did you think? I did. I really, really enjoyed it. I didn't like the ending because I don't think that's what should happen in a James Bond movie, but I appreciate and understand why it did in this in the circumstances with Daniel Craig. But yeah, I didn't. I remember thinking, okay, I get it, and I get why you did it, and I get it's adds to the kind of emotion of the movie, but I don't want to see that in a James Bond movie. Hopefully you understand what I mean. Ruta VD asks, what do you think is the reason our under-21 team is getting disappointing results? Again, I think it's really difficult to look at scores and results in the kind of the academy sides because of you've also got to take into account like the under-21s, for instance, is a good example because a lot of their kind of players that you would normally have in there are out on loan. And it's quite a young under-21s team as well. Some of the older players, certainly there was I remember watching one match. What was it? It was just before. It was when Alfie got himself injured. Alfie and Jamie Bowden both got injuries. It was only a few weeks back at Stevenage. And you kind of got the sense that the players were playing for loan moves, some of them in there. Not those two, but just players were playing for loan moves in there, trying to get themselves noticed. And that's another element. And it's such a difficult level to kind of get results that it's more about the development of the players. And it kind of comes across, I always find it it's not easy to read those kind of levels from results. It's not really the be-all and end-all. Let's have a look. Did you mention the Bourne, Michael McCarthy? Did you mention the Bourne Stuntacular in your Orlando video? It was really good. It was really good. That was actually a nice surprise. It was really, really enjoyable. It used to be the Terminator one. Right, I'm going to finish with the Spurs one. Oh yeah, people saying that I had the Ukraine national colours as my backdrop. I think what it is, and actually I've put that light on me too much. I changed and put this light on the floor because the room was quite dark. And I think it made the sofa, which is like a grey kind of sofa, look a different colour. It was not intentional to make it look like a Ukrainian flag or something. It was just purely the way that the light had made the sofa look a slightly different colour. Alan McCartney, have you done the stadium tour on the Skywalk? I have. Well, we had a media tour of both, actually. I did the Skywalk as well. It's very cool. I'd like to do the abseiling at some point. Right, let's find a good one. What else we got here? Ewan Bickers asked, why did the players have a black armband on? Because the Queen died. I'm going to finish with this one because it's going to make me laugh. Robert Andrews asked, where's Rob Guest from? I'm a language teacher from the US, and in my time watching English football, I've been able to pick up most accents, but his is like none I've ever heard. I assume Liverpool. Guesty is a big Everton fan, so yes, he's from up that way. I don't think it's Yorkie way, is it? Yorkie way? I'm trying to remember now. He's told me a million times. I've completely forgotten. Guess he's a big Everton fan. He's got a fantastic voice. He really has. And just get him to say anything in Italian, any Italian expressions, and they're brilliant in his accent. I love it. So yeah. All right, last one. Sam Jarrett, as a follow-up to the "Do you cheer?" question, which was from last week, do you still follow that no cheering policy, which is what I do in the media box, because it's not very professional. When you're on holiday and watching the game on your own, do you cheer or not cheer? I don't. I think I do have the emotion drilled out of me. I think I do. I'm trying to think because I did watch a couple of the games in Orlando. I might have said yes when the goal goes in, but that's about it really. Yeah, devoid of emotion. I'm a Tottenham robot nowadays. Kind of comes with the territory, unfortunately. Right, we're going to head off because it's 1 hour and 20 minutes. That has absolutely flown by. Probably people saying, well, it wasn't for us. But thank you for your questions. There were still so many more, honestly. I kind of started to run out of them the last one. This one I could fit almost another video in with them as well. But I don't know if we're going to have time purely because of the amount of matches and stuff coming up. But we'll do another one at some point. We will. We've got a World Cup to get through as well. Let's not forget that. So again, thank you, and sorry if I didn't get to your question, but there were so many good ones in there as well. And yeah, so there you go. Right, I'm going to head off. Like I say, I'm doing last word on Spurs, but by the time this gets out, I don't know. The processing time can be really quick and it can be really slow, YouTube's end. So it may come out after I'm on that. If it comes out before I'm on that, you can listen to me having a little chat on there as well. So there you go. Right, I'm going to head off. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves. I shall catch you later. Goodbye.